Thank you, Richard, and thanks to Queen's University Belfast for inviting me to contribute to today's event. A very warm welcome to all those who have joined us for these reflections on the Government of Ireland Act. During the course of this decade, from 2012 to 2022, we're marking the centenaries of seminal events which have shaped modern Irish history over the past century. These events have defined our relationship with Britain over the past 100 years. It's a relationship that's been characterised by colonialism, partition and political division, and one towards peace, reconciliation and renewed cooperation. 2020 has marked the anniversaries of much darker times. In 1920, the Black and Tans were introduced and the Lord Mayor of Cork, Thomas McCurtain, was murdered. And shortly after, Sinn Féin Lord Mayor Terence McSweeney died after 74 days on hunger strike. And in this month, 100 years ago, the Government of Ireland Act was enacted in Westminster Parliament, forcing partition on this island. The Government of Ireland Act came into force in May 21st, 1921, and the British King George V convened the then Parliament in Belfast City Hall the following month, with James Craig becoming Prime Minister of the Northern State. Unionism will choose to mark these events in a way in which they see fit, and unsurprisingly, the British Government has proposed that it should be an occasion for celebration. Nationalism, however, will see it very differently. For Irish Republicans and Nationalists, there will be no celebration of the partition of our country. It has failed the people across this island. It's worth noting that the British monarch, during the visit to this island a number of years ago, acknowledged that with the benefit of historical hindsight, we can all see things which we would have wished had been done differently, or not at all. Irish nationalism and republicanism will present our political perspectives and experiences of partition. Discrimination and state repression were the lived experience for successive generations. Unionists have a separate narrative, and theirs was a lived experience which was different. The bottom line is that partition did not have an upside. It created an exclusionary Orange state, the consequence of which was political conflict. However, these historical events and experiences will be placed in their contemporary context. The political, social and cultural consequences of what happened during the decade of 1912 to 22 continue to reverberate throughout this island to this day. And while we try to heal the wounds of the past, we must also live and strive in the present and look to the future together. The peace process and the Good Friday Agreement have created that alternative to conflict. The Good Friday Agreement has provided a peaceful, a democratic pathway to Irish unity, which I believe will become a reality during this decade. The constitutional future rests on the principle of consent, as set out in the Good Friday Agreement. Today's Assembly is unrecognisable from the previous iterations of the old Unionist regime at Stormont. Today the Executive is formed by and is representative of all of the people in the North. That is the difference to the failed regimes that went before. The once monolithic Unionist majority has gone, and the notion of a perpetual Unionist majority, the very basis of partition, has also gone. And like Brexit, there was and is no good partition, and that cannot be sugar-coated. So the objective reality that partition rests at the heart of many of our divisions here in the North and between Britain and Ireland cannot be ignored. Brexit has exposed the undemocratic nature and the failure of partition in Ireland, and it's created the biggest constitutional crisis for unionism in a century. The circumstances of Brexit have created a new political, social and economic uncertainty for Ireland and indeed for Britain. But significant new realities and opportunities have also emerged. The issue of Irish unity has taken on a whole new dynamic because of Brexit. Demographics are changing and so too is the political landscape, and this cannot be ignored. I see no contradiction in declaring and delivering on our firm commitment to power sharing with unionism in the Stormont Assembly, whilst also initiating a mature and inclusive debate about new political arrangements which examine Ireland's future beyond Brexit. Similarly, I see no contradiction in unionism working the existing constitutional arrangements while taking its rightful place in the conversation about what a new Ireland would look like. We can do all this while maintaining our independent, distinct political identities and working in the best interest of all of the people. Today we're not only witnessing the realignment of Irish politics on this island, but we're also shaping it. We're entering a decade of opportunity where the freedom to choose our own future will be decided by the people on this island alone. How we live together, how we work together, and how we share this island together. This is a defining moment in the history of Ireland. And the decisions that all of the people on this island make now will shape the direction of our island for the next generation. Now we have a decision to make about how we engage with the history and the politics of next year. We can continue arguing over the past throughout 2021, or we can choose a different discourse by beginning a new, progressive conversation about how our divided traditions can share a future of opportunity on this island. To begin mapping out an agreed future together. Let me be clear, we don't want 2021 to be characterised by division and rancour. What we want is to have a political conversation that asks the questions, is there something better for each and every one of us on this island? As we approach the centenary of partition, I'm advocating one where republicanism and unionism and others contribute to a national conversation. Let's not refight the battles of the past. It's time to bring people together. We can open doors and we can let this future in. We must give people hope and our young people opportunity. None of us own this debate. It's time to hear all voices. A space is opened up for all citizens to have a conversation about the type of future they want. So there's an obligation on those of us who are making the case for Irish unity to offer a coherent and persuasive view of what the future would hold. A properly informed and facilitated debate about constitutional change is needed right across this island and between these islands. A new national dialogue has already begun about future constitutional change. The Irish Government should accept its responsibility to facilitate that discourse. A defining watershed is also opened up in respect to relationships in Ireland and between Ireland and Britain and the European Union. It's time to commence a planned transition to Irish reunification and to national reconciliation, which must be at the heart of all of this transformational process. I think it's fair to say that there are those of a British and unionist identity who are starting to assess this. This is not to say that they are not British, nor have they given up their allegiances, but I believe they are being challenged to rethink their economic future. We will set out with confidence our analysis, our experience and our vision of an open, inclusive and agreed Ireland. The political momentum on change is moving in that direction. Citizens are looking to the future to see where their interests are going to be best served. Change is certainly in the air. It's imperative that we must promote reconciliation as opposed to deepening division. We have lived a century apart and partition has failed. We have lived for much too long back to back. It's time to start living side by side. It's certainly my conviction that Irish reunification and reconciliation are inseparable. I believe the current political discourse on constitutional change in Ireland must also address the challenge of building a reconciliation and a healing process. A new constitutional settlement in Ireland based upon a progressive national democracy would provide a durable framework guaranteeing civil and religious liberties and democratic rights for all of its citizens. A new agreed Ireland built upon the unity of all its people should put reconciliation and healing at the heart of both civil and political institutions. That is a society which embraces acknowledgement of the past but will make healing central to its future. A stark choice confronts us, a narrow, inward-looking vision of Brexit Britain or an open, inclusive vision of a new Ireland. 2021 should be about inclusive conversations. This is a time for big debate, big ideas and a public discourse that threatens no one. I want to look to the new future beyond partition, to the creation of a new Ireland built on equality, reconciliation and respect. As a political leader, as Deputy First Minister and as Joint Head of Government, I am committed to building a common cause with our unionist colleagues and others for a shared society that makes room for and gives respect to every citizen. In April 2018, I attended an event in Queen's University marking the 20th anniversary of the Good Friday Agreement. And seated beside me was a young man from a unionist tradition. And we got to talking, about building peace in the future. This was a young man whose family had been directly impacted by the conflict, and what he told me has stayed with me. He said that he was open to the idea of a united Ireland, but that that future had to be one that wasn't about victory. So let's look to a future that's not about victories, but a future that's filled with hope, with opportunity, and one in which we are all equal and feel a sense of belonging. Thank you.